G'day everyone. Normally I script my comic book reviews and narrate them, put together a little video with some images and clips. I just got the KAMEN America PDF in the mail from the Indiegogo campaign that finished recently, and I thought I might try something a bit different. I thought I might try doing a live review, just have a bit of a ramble and just sort of say whatever comes into my head as I scroll through and have a look at the book. Now I haven't read the book, I haven't looked past the front cover, I just thought I'd try and do this cold. The first page in the PDF is a picture of KAMEN America character. I don't even know if that's her name. I imagine it must be. I don't know what a KAMEN is. I've heard of Kamen Rider, but I've never watched it. Maybe that's something I should look up. There's a picture of KAMEN taking a selfie with Rags from the comic book of the same name. And I want to say Punchline. I know it's not Knuckle Bomb Maiden. I'm sure it's Punchline. I bought the two PDFs of first volume and second volume of that on Indiegogo. I'm just waiting for that to turn up in the email. So that's cool to have a bit of a crossover. I notice more and more there's this sort of unofficial crossovers happening, and crossover comics are guaranteed money. Spawn and Batman, Judge Dredd and Batman, Punisher and Batman. I'm noticing a trend here. Love to see a team up between these three. That's definitely something I would buy. I could see a 48-page team up issue of these three fighting. Looks like Shumagorath in the background. They're fighting anything really. Zombify the enemies of Kamen Rider, and I'm going to continue to say Punchline until someone corrects me. That's something I'd pay money for. Moving on to the cover. The front cover, I'm getting real Dragon Ball vibes off it. It could just be the bright blue eyes and the blonde hair and the electricity power effect. I find that I sort of feel like in anime and manga, the electrical aspect, the electricity of power manifestations tends to be more prominent than it is in maybe Western comics, where we tend to get Kirby dots and glowing fists. The art on this is just fantastic, 110% spot on. Everything about it looks good. This is the sort of cover that makes you want to pick it up and give it a closer look. Just look at the variations of colour in the hair. Look at the reflection of the energy manifestation on the left hand, which is on the right side of the page. You can just see on the underside of the palm and the finger there's little smidges of orange. It's reflecting off the energy manifestation. It's fantastic. Also, bottom line of a jaw, and on the shoulder there you can see the way the shoulder, on her right shoulder, the orange fades as it comes across to the chest in the costume. Just a fantastic bit of artwork. They're not a fan of some of the big chunky brushes in the background. I think they could have been worked in a bit more, but I mean it's a pretty small thing considering how good everything else looks. So looking at this cover, if it was on the shelf of your comic book store, it was on the shelf of my local comic book store, which has shut down, thanks Marvel, thanks Jim Lee and Dio and Quesada, because I suppose you started a lot of that. Thanks Akira Yoshida. Thanks Sana Amanat for shutting down my local comic book store. Now I have nowhere to go and buy comics. I've been going there 17 years, but no, that's fine. The progressive agenda is more important. I'm a straight white male, so who cares what happens to me, right? If this cover was on the shelf at your local comic book store, at my local comic book store, would I pick it up and have a closer look? Yes, I would, for two reasons. Top quality artwork and big shiny boobs. You can't deny the titillation factor matters. Sex does sell, despite what wokies and new wave feminists want to tell you. Sex does sell. Notice that the colouring on the boobs is a lot tighter than anywhere else. Everywhere else got a slight Painley style. Like you look at her right thigh, you see the very distinct gradations of the shapes of the muscle groups there. If you look at the boobs, perfectly smooth spheres. Like, I mean, it's right in the middle of the page. It draws your eye. There's no one's being dishonest about what's going on here. You walk along, and we're tuned into that. You guys ever been walking down the street and you see a girl wearing like a flesh-coloured shirt or an apricot-coloured shirt or something, and for a second your dumb brain goes, oh, that girl's not wearing a shirt. That woman's topless. And you have another look, oh no, that's just like a beige. Just like a beige shirt. But just for a moment, you thought maybe there was a chance some insane person went outside without a shirt on, and you get to see boobs. That's what's happening here. Your eyes are scanning across all the books on the rack, and part of your brain just says, hey, hold on, there's some boobs there. And no, they're not real boobs, but your brain doesn't know that at the time. It just sees the shape and the colour and the mass, and it goes, hey, react. You're human, you're male. React to it the way you're supposed to. React the way that you've been built to. You've been designed to, and that's what we do. So I'd walk along and I'd see this, and I'd see the boobs, and I'd see the fantastic artwork on the front cover, and my first thought would be, past the boobs, the second thought would be, the artwork on the inside can't possibly be this good all the way through, and I would be right. I'll talk about more of that in a minute. But I'd want to know, is this just some cherry Pop-Tart type titillation TNA book where this character's getting into all sorts of lewd situations and just managing to escape at the last minute in some contrived way? Is it pratfall comedy? Is it Charlie Chaplin or Benny Hill with boobs and superhero motifs? Or is it something more like Empowered, which at first glance might seem like just a big boob, big bum book, but there's so much more going on there. Like, it really is a fantastic deep lore universe that Adam Warren has created. If you haven't checked it out, I would advise that you go check it out. It's like some sort of passion project for him. I read the first 5 volumes, maybe. I haven't caught up on the rest, but I think there's quite a few more. They're large books. They've got a lot of content in it, and it's deepest lore. He's really spent a lot of time. I kind of feel like maybe he made a lot of it up on the spot, but it all connects together. And some people who can just wing it, pantsers, people who can just make it up on the spot and it all links together. I like to think that maybe parts of their brain are subconsciously making connections between one element and another, and when they introduce, they've got A and they've got C, and when they introduce B, they don't realise they're going to have A, B and C, but deep down their brain knows there's a gap there, just like the guys that were discovering elements on the periodic table of elements. They were saying, look, we've got this element, we've got that element, there's a gap there. There'll be an element that we'll discover in the future that looks like this, has these properties. We'll be able to do these things because it's a scale, because we can tell from A and C that we should have a B. I think there's some people whose brains work like that when it comes to storytelling. I think that because I know my brain works a little bit like that, not as much as I'd like, but enough for me to be glad that it does. I think Adam Warren might be a bit like that. Some of the stuff that he makes up is really light-hearted and easygoing, but it all clicks together and makes a fantastic whole narrative. So I'm looking at this cover and I'm thinking, which is it going to be? Is it going to be Benny Hill with boobs, or is it going to be something more like Empowered? And there's something else I just thought of, is if you have a look at this character's costume, it's almost exactly the same as the real Ms. Marvel. I hate that when I hear Ms. Marvel now I think of Kamala Khan, but this is where we're at. But the original Ms. Marvel had a costume very much like Captain Marvel, and then she updated it, I think maybe the late 70s, early 80s. It was like a black, you know what it is, you've seen it. It's a black one-piece swimsuit with long boots, long gloves, domino mask, and a red sash. She's got a lightning bolt across the chest, so this is almost exactly the same. Maybe this is in response. I mean, you can recolour this and nearly make Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers. So maybe this was made as a response to the complete character assassination and butchery of what's going on with her. She was an interesting character at one point. Now she's not anymore. You got the digital copy Indiegogo logo down the bottom here. I don't know who needs to know that it's a digital copy. Anybody who's got it knows how they got it. I doubt that anyone's going to pull apart their real copy to scan and pirate this thing when digital copies exist. It'd be nothing for someone to throw this up on Pirate Bay or something. And I reckon if I went and searched Pirate Bay, there'd be a copy of it up there right now, ready to go. I don't know if this Cute Sexy Robots is the name of the artist who did this cover, but it really is fantastic. And it's the first thing they see when they pick it up off the shelf. It's nearly the first thing you see when you open the PDF, and it tends to be the artwork that's on display on your Indiegogo crowdfunding page. If there's ever a book that I've looked at and the price is right and the premise is right and I haven't backed it, the reason I didn't back it is because I didn't like the artwork. So you spare no expense on the cover. Even if people are a little bit disappointed when they scroll down further and the interior doesn't match the exterior, you can't undersell the importance of a really, really good cover. It's what gets people in. Look at Kyle Ritter's cover for Second Jawbreakers. People are excited about a second one, they're interested, but then when that cover dropped, it blew up. And people said, look, that's got to be the cover. That is too good just to be fan artwork. You've got to make that into the cover, and he did. look at how many times he featured John Mayallon's artwork for the first Jawbreakers on Zach featured on his videos. It was you'd have these 20-30 minute videos where he's just talking about the characters and how he got to creating them and where the inspiration come from. And the whole time he just had the artwork of John Mayallon's cover for Jawbreakers up on the screen, and nobody complained because it was a damn good cover. Iconic even. Here we've got a quote from Doug Tenaple. That's not a controversial choice, but he seems to be a pretty controversial dude. I mean, I'm nobody, I've had nothing to do with him, but it seems like people are very firmly entrenched in one camp or the other, like or dislike. I really enjoyed Earthworm Jim as a kid. I only ever played the second one, and I don't know how much input he had into that, but it really just blew my mind. You're playing along and you just got this game, you think it's a game, platformer, jumping, shooting, whatever, and then you got this level where you got to use a you call it like a safety net type thing to stop these dogs from splatting on the ground. And then you've got a level where Jim's a blind cave salamander and he's holding his gun in one little clawed foot as he floats around the caves or the interior of some, I don't know. It's surreal. I just remember being a much younger man and playing that and thinking this is a trip. Whoever come up with this is an interesting dude. I suppose that's a nice way to say it. Doug Tenaple is an interesting dude. So the quote, which you've probably already read while I rambled, is, "Do you serve truth, goodness and beauty, or will you sell out your character to serve money? If money, then beauty is optional. If beauty, then money is optional. Making both is quite the trick and a rare luxury." I wonder why Tim Lim included this quote. You serve truth, goodness and beauty. So truth and goodness is mentioned up the top, but it's not mentioned later on. Things can be beautiful without being true or good. We've all dated someone like that. Will you sell out your cake to serve money? Maybe Tim Lim's saying that because he's got a big Indiegogo logo here down the bottom, and I'm sure I forgot the Kickstarter edition. I did have the Kickstarter logo. I think he's trying to say that Indiegogo gives creators a platform to do both. You can have the beauty of ownership of your own character and control of your own character and still make money at the same time. I mean, it's taken the power away from the gatekeepers and the trendsetters, and it's given freedom. Anybody can put up a product and completely merit-based. It doesn't matter what you got between your legs or what colour your skin is, or, Tim Lim's a success story. Your boy Zach's a success story. Clint, Downcast, he's a Sweetcast, he's a success story. There's more than I could list, really. Someone like Ethan Van Sciver, who's I believe a once-in-a-lifetime Einsteinian talent, whether you like his style or not. I think anybody who doesn't like his style, I don't know. You can like and dislike what you want. Like, everybody's brain tells them, hey, you like this, hey, you don't like this. I think anybody who looks at his style and says, I don't like this, I find that hard to believe. I mean, I can understand somebody not loving it because it is a particular style, but to say that it's not good just seems disingenuous. Somebody look at Ethan Van Sciver's artwork and say that's not good artwork. You're not fooling me. You're not fooling anyone. So this is by Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini, published by Iconic Comics. Nice to see it published in the United States. Nothing may be reproduced or transmitted without the written consent of the authors, except for the purpose of review and promotion. Whew. Lucky. Alright, let's have a look at the book itself. Oscar, Indiana, 11 years ago. The colouring makes me think of anime as well. That the bright light green of the trees and the idyllic blue of the sky seems to be something you see a lot in anime. Those sort of, that image that they put forward. Nice colouring on this shirt here. Picking up all the folds and creases. Get some maybe even have some parallels. No, I never saw the Captain Marvel movie. Maybe there's some parallels. Failing at sport of some sort. Not sure. There's something about her falling down and having to get back up several times. Saw it in the trailer. I really didn't have any interest in watching that movie. I haven't. Last Marvel movie I watched was Ant-Man, I think. And the last DC movie I saw was, I think it was Aquaman, but I didn't see Shazam, aka the real Captain Marvel, until after I saw Aquaman. I think Shazam came out first, but I could be wrong. These the movie adaptations can't stop slaughtering the characters, so I've just tapped out of that. So she gets hit with a baseball as the catcher looks a bit worried. Very simple there, very cartoony, sort of sets the tone, what you'd expect. You know, I remember some cartoons, some anime even, where the main characters are quite serious looking, but the background characters are all quite cartoony. You get some of that even in some older comics, where the main characters might look quite stylized and super heroic, and people in the background look quite cartoony, like a Robert Crumb character. Yeah, nice motion on the ball there, and you really feel like you're right there with her as a ball zooming right in on her face. Yeah, so I'd like to think that they're going to do something clever with the inking on this, and it must be the way I've zoomed in on it. Quality looks very rough. Maybe that's the style. I don't know. Very, very anime here, but just how rough these lines are. You know, you can get quite a smooth, very pixelated. You can get quite a smooth line with a bunch of different tools. There's no reason for it to look this jagged unless they want it to. She said the girls can do everything that boys do. Girls should do everything boys do. And I was setting a bad example to other girls by making dresses. Miss Wormwood. Oh, Wormwood. That's interesting. What is Wormwood? What is named Wormwood? What effect does that have on the world? She said that girls can do everything that boys do. Not true. She said that girls should do everything that boys do. Also not true. And boys can't do everything that girls do. It's not. You shouldn't have to be the same. So it'd be interesting to see how. Is it the dad? There's KAMEN emphasis. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's her dad. It'll be interesting to see how this view changes as she gets older. Supposed to play, not supposed to sew clothes or play with dolls or bake brownies. Supposed to play baseball and lift weights and chop firewood. I mean, no one's stopping anybody. No one's stopping women from playing baseball, lifting weights, or chopping firewood. Well, I do enjoy chopping firewood. I wouldn't let a woman chop my firewood. I'd much prefer to do it myself. Yeah, do what you want to do as long as you like it. It's what you want to do. There's also nothing wrong with a girl sewing a pretty dress. A lot of folks are going to concern themselves with telling you to be something you're not, but all you've got to focus on is being someone you are. And you've got some maybe superheroic stuff there, and she going to take her dressmaking and turn it into a costume. Is it highlighting the fact that she has the ability to make a costume? Is that they never mention it in the first Raimi Spider-Man movie? Like, where did he get that costume? It's just such a professional costume with all the textures and the webbing, and it's made out of something like latex or vinyl or something. And there's no way some high school kid could just come up with that. Weird Al highlights it in his song where he takes a tune of Piano Man and changes it to Spider-Man. Fantastic song, that. There's that line in there, where'd you come up with those tights? It's not really mentioned. And it is a tricky thing for some superheroes to, because you're gonna make it. Some cosplay looks awful, some looks fantastic, some looks awful, some looks really cheap. If you're someone who doesn't have any skills and you get powers and you want to be a hero and you're not buying your stuff off Amazon like Kiera does in Saving the World, you're just sewing a costume yourself, you end up looking quite silly when you're all grown up. So here she is, part of a cabaret act. No, it's the colouring's very washed out here, but I think that's a consequence of these lights. It's trying to show that you've got like this hazy show tune stage production type colouring. Cover by Tim Loom, okay. And Genzo Man, back cover by Cute Sexy Robots. Music by Doug Garrett. Maybe KAMEN America had a theme song I didn't hear about. Presents the ladies of Topkekistan. Chatelet Brothers, Chatelet. Ceasefire celebration. They were super. That's funny, and I don't know why they were super. Shut up, Austin, you'll get in trouble again. I feel like that may be a joke that I'm missing. She's disappointed that people don't like her costumes, the outfits as much. They're only there to see the dances, which sort of self-defeating. I mean, if they come and they watch the dancers dressed in potato sacks, and they wouldn't enjoy the show. So you got to feel that your contributions are part of the greater whole. She says that she likes doing the USO shows. She doesn't get a lot of recognition from it. There's a green glow in the sky. She's thrown around in the back of the car. Looks like meteors or some sort of projectile falling from the sky. There's a green one. Freak meteor shower. I mean, this is phenomenon with John Travolta. This is Rising Stars. Even I've used this in one or two stories. The idea that how you get the powers themselves is not as important as the fact that you've got them or what you do with them. Unless it's a part of the story itself and it really matters. I don't mind this conceit. I don't mind this flash in the sky, hit by a meteor from space. You got your powers right now. Cope with it. It doesn't always have to have some grand. That Scott Snyder, 10,000 years ago stuff was set in motion that's manifesting today. It doesn't always have to be that. I don't mind just green meteor flies from the sky, gives her powers, and it might kill everybody around her, and only she survives for some reason. Look at Unbreakable. Bruce Willis, fantastic movie, 10 out of 10, one of the best movies I've ever seen. People like to be cynical about stuff after the fact. They look back on it 10, 15, 20 years later. Oh, it wasn't that good. Oh, it was good. It's that good. It is that good. And it was that good when it came out. And that's what I think you need to remember is how did you respond to that bit of media the first time you viewed it? I've said before, the first time I viewed Kill Bill, the first volume of Kill Bill, after watching that, I hadn't watched a lot of blaxploitation, a lot of gonzo type stuff before. I'd seen Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, but neither of those were on the level of Kill Bill. After I saw the first Kill Bill movie, I couldn't write or draw anything for 3 or 4 months after that. I just thought, what's the point? What's the point of drawing a picture? It's not going to be turned into a costume. It becomes a character that's on the screen. It's going to be doing anything like what Uma Thurman and Quentin Tarantino did. What's the point in writing a story? It's not going to have the same level of lore and depth and impact that those movies had. It absolutely ruined me for months. This guy just takes off, leaves her in the car. He could have taken her with him. Interesting little colour, neon scree there. This is very simple. I don't mind the zipper tone, fake zipper tone there, and there, and there. Some texture there. That's, it's pretty much 2-3 tone colouring. It's base colour and shadow. Not even really highlights in some of it. Little highlights there. So that's a good way to get a bit of variation. Definitely has that thin lined manga style that I know very little about because I can't read mangas. I find them. Oh, someone's going to say manga. I'm just going to say manga because that's how I've always said it. I have trouble reading them back to front. I know it should be as simple as going right to left instead of left to right, but and the speech balloons, I suppose, go right to left as well. But I don't know. My brain just doesn't like it. I can muddle through and work out what's happening, but not all the time. Sometimes I struggle. I have these strange close-ups where really speed lines and explosions. It's a bit too busy for me. I'd prefer something simpler like this, or something more like a 70s or an 80s or even a 90s Marvel comic. Big bright colours and simpler, more high contrast line work. So she stays in the truck, which seems a bit silly. I think if I saw the bloke that was driving me around, the bloke that's combat trained, the bloke that at least got some sort of experience maybe in a war zone or in combat situations, if I saw him running the opposite direction, I'd probably be doing my best to follow. And then there's the debris, so it looks like the truck was hit with the meteorite. I'm not sure what the difference is. Isn't one of them when they enter the atmosphere, it goes from becoming a meteor to becoming a meteorite? I think that's how it goes. Interesting if this guy had stayed in the truck and he'd got powers as well. So it's a pretty standard sort of setup. She's just a girl in the world, and then literally, boom, out of nowhere she gets superpowers. I think they could have this just looks like a photo of the night sky run through some filters and blurred. I remember Eric Larson saying that he does all of his space and night skies by hand, and he said I think what he said is he has a white background and he dots them all in black ink, thousands of tiny little stars. I mean, just phenomenal really, or different size and variations. And then in the colouring process, I think he digitally gets the colours reversed, so white becomes black and black becomes white. And he said he does that because he loves his readers so much. I think there was a time that was true. And his night skies, he's got a lot of it. Larson stuff got strains of Kirby and strains of Walt Simonson. These classic artists that were seminal to Western comics. Western comics wouldn't exist and the form they do today without these guys. This is pretty rough here. But at the same time, Tim Lim's putting out half a dozen books a year, so what do I know? One coma later, Area 51 go away. Intruders will be shot on, I think it says on site. I like these clouds. I like the simplicity of those clouds. Gives them an ethereal feeling because they don't have a black outline. And this guy here, this Colonel Sanders looking ominous scientist, said that she charged his smartphone while she was out, and there's little sparks of electricity coming off her, so we can assume that it's just some sort of electrical powers maybe, or just some sort of energy that can be converted to electricity. One thing to keep in mind is the textures in the background here. This just looks like a painted wall texture, or maybe a paper texture here and here. Some finer paper textures, and something's been maybe, I don't think it's been drawn, I think it's just been pasted there, and the opacity's been reduced. Just a bit of texture in the background to keep things interesting looking. I mean, this is all done digitally, I assume, so there's no reason for this to actually have a paper texture unless they've chosen to put a paper texture in there. It just keeps it from looking flat, helps it look a little bit more tactile. I think sometimes digital stuff looks so crisp it loses any sense of realness. And, especially the older ones of us probably all remember flipping through newsprint comics, and the smell of newsprint, the feel of newsprint. I love that Alterna's using newsprint. I'm really hoping to get an opportunity to get my hands on some Alterna comics at some point soon. It tells us she's been in a coma. She's been asleep for 500 years, and that she's humanity's last hope. And she's not happy with that news, and he says no, that was a test of her cognitive faculties. He's just making sure she didn't experience any brain damage. She references when she was hit with the baseball as a kid. He tells that she's only been out for 3 weeks, which is still a concern. He says, don't try. It is Area 51, so try not to look at anything. You've absorbed a staggering amount of radiation, presumably from the planet Venus, while in Topkekistan. Okay, that took me a lot longer than it should have. Topkekistan. She absorbed a lot of radiation from the planet Venus. She says, is Venus radiation bad for you? And he says all radiation can be bad for you. Venus being the Roman goddess of love and beauty and sex, I think. Maybe this is a bit of a hint towards the hypersexualization of her in the immediate future, because right now what we're seeing here certainly doesn't match up with what's on the front cover. And I don't say hypersexualization like it's a bad thing. She says, why am I in the x-ray machine? There's a malfunction, the door blows off, and she has a high level of chimeratons in her blood sample. Between Venus and Chimera makes me think that Tim Lim might be a bit of a fan of Greek and Roman mythology. He said, should you experience nausea, migraines, or new tumours, please call me at this number. He said, did I have any old tumours? It's like the old, will I be able to play the piano, Doc? Of course you can. Well, I couldn't before. And the military man, Abernathy maybe? Very, very simple, almost C.C. Beck style Captain Marvel eyes. Even simpler than that, really. And then she's offered a enlistment contract for military service. She says, please don't make me do this. And he says, it's just a job offer, we're not conscripting you. She asks if she's allowed to leave, and she's told that she can, because there she is on her way. Vision by Vanders, not Vanderlei. George Costanza will be disappointed. What if the little bump on his head, did that come from... He didn't have that beforehand, so he must have got the bump on his head during that explosion. That's a nice little attention to detail. Little bits of texture in the corner here. I like the glow effect on this lightning. Everything about this makes it look like almost like it's a paper comic, a physical comic that's been scanned. Just all these textures and the tactile feeling. Definitely, I'm sure that's the effect they were going for. Here we've got Sunrise, New Beginning. Someone's come to pick her up. It's her pal Vicky. How was your coma? Fine, I guess. It's funny. It's subtle humour. It's funnier than I thought it was going to be. I find myself having a little chuckle probably every page. Thanks for giving me a lift. Don't mention it. I always wanted to drive across Illinois and Missouri and Kansas and Colorado. And she's feeling glum because she doesn't know what to do with herself now. She wasn't happy with the dancing gigs her agent was getting her, but she turned down a good offer from the army guys. She wants to design clothes, but that's not enough. And I don't know what else to do. I mean, designing clothes could be enough, especially these days, with Etsy and everything online. I mean, my wife buys almost all of her clothes online. And there's people at this one company, I think they're an Australian company, and they have new releases on a Tuesday maybe. Mrs. Kemosabe is always telling me how they're sold out minutes after they go live. They have streamed fashion shows where they show off the new wares, and the resale value on these things are ridiculous. Like, people are paying nearly full price because they're limited collections, so they'll put out a seasonal collection with a particular pattern, a particular material, and then they won't make it again. So somebody and they give, it's very, very good marketing. These guys are master class in marketing. They give each dress a name, like the Valerie or the Lenore, to personalise it, so then people feel like there's ownership, there's a connection, there's a relationship there, and they'll be like, "Oh, I love my Lenore. I'm not going out with Lenore tonight," and they'll trade anybody got a Lenore, and people, and then people know exactly what it is as well. They know it's this particular dress, this cut, this material. These guys must be millionaires. They're making an absolute killing because the dresses are not cheap. The outfits are quite expensive, but good quality. I mean, they look fantastic. She doesn't know what to do with her life. She said, you've got it better than other people. Some people would envy your problems. This is something I notice a lot. I think I mentioned it in Saving the World with Botonic Mole. Kira's complaining about her life, but she's a cute, busty redhead with a regular job that makes enough money to buy comics and run a current magic deck. I mean, that's half the guys on the internet would crawl over broken glass to get a waifu like that. So if your character's going to complain about their situation in life, I think you need to do one of two things: either give them a really, really shitty situation in life, so that people can empathise and go, "Hey, yeah, you do." Look at Harry Potter. That first movie, I didn't enjoy the first movie when I saw it. It's not really my thing anyway. I've read the books. Most of the books, just to see how it ended. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's not for me. But the first couple of scenes in the first movie, they make you want to take his family out behind the woodshed and give him a good thrashing. They're just so cruel to him. They're so mean to this kid for no other crime other than being born different. It's really hard to watch somebody be punished just for being different. So you can do that. You can give your character an awful life and people can sympathise with them. Or have them say how awful their life is, but it's not really that bad, and then let them realise through the course of the story that their life isn't that bad after all. Here she's complaining about her problems. Kiera complains about her problems. But then another female character, let's say Rags from the comic of the same name, I don't remember her complaining about her situation, and she watched her boyfriend get eaten alive right in front of her. She's had a breakdown. She's had to run around naked or half naked for about 7 books now. She's been beaten, attacked, insulted, shot at. She's in a horrible post-apocalyptic zombie world with nobody she knows or cares about, and I don't see her complaining about her problems. I just see her either having a breakdown and a cry and saying this is awful, yes it is, recognition that it's awful, or getting on with it. So if your character's going to say, oh, my life sucks, and other people recognise that it doesn't, and she says, at least you always knew what you wanted to be and you were never picked on in school by the teacher because of it. And this is Tim Lim going beyond woke, beyond broke, straight to bespoke. I don't know. Is it political? Is it shoehorned? I mean, we know it's true. The numbers back this up. She says that she wasn't picked on because she was all about the science. The teacher told her to break the glass ceiling, like it was still 1955 or something. And here's a bit of truth. We see the statistics back this up time and time again. Her graduating class was 75% women. She only got one male co-worker. I don't ever want to give away too much. I mean, I could be so lucky to ever become so known or influential or matter enough to actually have the SJW hordes come after me, but so I'm going to try and keep stuff on the DL. But I also have worked in an industry that has similar statistics where I graduated and the majority of the graduating class was women, and in any workplace I've worked in, I'd be lucky to have one other male co-worker. More often than not, I was the sole male in these workplaces. So, yeah, when people want to talk about the glass ceiling, it's not something that applies everywhere, I guess is what I'm saying. Vicky managed to get a pass from Miss Wormwood because she was so science-oriented. Miss Wormwood thought Vicky was going to strike a blow against the patriarchy, and she looks like she's no happier than Carly is. Carly asks if Badger is okay, and Vicky says she's been feeding him. Why'd you name your, I'm probably going to say this wrong, capybara Badger anyway? And Carly says, what's a capybara? So she must have named him Badger because she thought he was actually a badger. A capybara, that strange-looking creature. So she says g'day to Ziggy, which I think is Zygmunt from... Yeah, there is capybara. Yeah, there's this Kickstarter that's got half a dozen of these as the main characters. They're like anthropomorphic. They've got space marine type armor and big weapons, and it looks well drawn. Looks good. I have to see if they've got a digital version. There's a shop, Visions by Vanders. Whenever you use Photoshop text and you just lay it across and distort it, warp it so that it just fits the angle. I don't know. I'd rather see this sort of thing hand drawn so it fits in. But I mean, this could be a traced 3D model. It's very, very precise. But you can see the pixelation there. I don't really want to zoom in. So I don't want to lose the right angle. But that always, because it hasn't got a black outline, it makes it look insubstantial to me. It's the same poster she had in her room when she was a kid, so she's still got those links to the past. That looks like her costume that was destroyed in the meteor blast. She's looking a bit curvier here than she was in the hospital gown, but that could just be a consequence of the hospital gown. A little cross above there, so I know she's a Christian, or at least has Christian leanings. So there's storm clouds gathering and there's some rumbling. She's talking to Ziggy, which is a Zygmunt that threw the baseball at her head at the beginning of the book. And she talks about a dark storm cloud that's been hanging over her the past few days. Zygmunt assumes that she means her mood, but she says no, actual storm clouds followed her across 6 states. So when you said the doctor before said that she charged up his, I don't know if he said iPhone, but charged up his phone with electricity, and now storm clouds are following. I'm guessing she's going to have electrical powers. I mean, it seemed pretty obvious before. Sometimes energy powers are drawn with like an electrical manifestation. It doesn't actually have the properties of electricity. You've got a guy like Electro who shoots bolts of electricity. If he's shooting a bolt of electricity at Spider-Man, then there's a huge metal pole nearby, like a lightning rod, a conductor. Is this lightning going to warp, turn away from Spider-Man and hit the metal pole? Can he alter the physics of lightning to the point where it doesn't behave like lightning? And if he can, at that point, is it still lightning? Is it still electricity? It's not something that keeps me up at night wondering about it. Just like I don't worry about who changes the wheels on the Batmobile. Everybody knows Alfred does it. And this reminds me very Pokemon. She out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There's a path, a dirt path leading up to her shop. She's getting tired of people asking if she's got brain damage. The storm clouds are getting worse and worse, thicker and thicker, darker and darker. And then, reminiscent of Barry Allen, a lightning bolt smashes through and strikes her. Her phone blows up. Her hair changed colour? Yes, it's red there. And then after the lightning bolt, it's turned yellow. Am I blonde? What about her eye colour? Does it change as well? So she's got sort of blue-green eyes here. And they're straight, very, very Super Saiyan. You've got a slight glow. Not even that slight, really. It's would have continued to glow on this curl here, though. These shadows are really, really like almost neon pink. A really high contrast. And then they're less high contrast there, so it could just be a consequence of the lightning bolt. I find it interesting that after she's floating and her hair colour changed, she's obviously got abilities. Her first thought is that she can remark and rebrand herself. And it's not a new topic. It's been talked to death online, and many different comics have done it. But it's the old, what would you actually do if you had superpowers? I often thought, you see how much these basketball players are getting paid. Imagine if Peter Parker decided to go NBA. He'd be unstoppable. He can dunk from full court, not even half court. He can full court dunk. With his accuracy, he'd never miss a three-pointer. I mean, he could not even worry about the dunking, not draw attention to himself, just become the best three-point shooter in the entire league. And, with his ability to stick to the ball, you wouldn't be able to steal from him, with his agility and speed, and the fact that he's not a big guy, he's only 5'10". It feels like these days they're drawing him a lot smaller and thinner. But he's always been, for the longest time, he's always been said to be 5'10". He could be earning $100 million a year easy. He'd be a pro NBA player who married Mary Jane, and even Quesada couldn't ruin that. Lansky and Schultz. I feel like everything's an in-joke here, but I don't see home Rhode Island. RI? Is RI Rhode Island? I'm not American, I don't know for sure. Media Relations Agency, Seal, Rhode Island. She's going to call herself Warhen. No, he wants to call her Warhen, and she says it's a terrible name. And the guy from Rhode Island says that chickens are big money right now. I don't know if that's a jab at... This is some good stuff. I've never read a Tim Lim comic before. This is some good stuff. So is this a jab at Brett Breitweiser? Flies the coop. He's flying the coop with the backers' money and getting the books into Walmart, which is a victory in itself. A lot of people aren't happy with the way it went down. I got no skin in the game. I didn't back Red Rooster. I wasn't fiscal at the time. All those books are coming out, and I tend to go digital anyway, just because the shipping to Australia is exorbitant. Are your parents dead? No. Well, it's wrong. Your parents have to be dead. You can't be here unless you're an orphan, which most heroes were. But then when they changed it around with Superman and kept his parents alive, they become hugely popular, integral characters. I'd say that the Superman that had his parents alive, John Byrne, gave us the very best version of Superman. I maintain that the 6-issue mini-series Man of Steel still probably peak Superman of all time. I can never get sick of reading that book. It's just spot on. He kept Clark's parents alive, and they were, it's fantastic to watch his interactions with them. It gave so much more to the character. I don't know what being an orphan brings to a character unless there's issues of loneliness and abandonment and isolation that feed into the journey that character takes. If you're just saying, the parents are dead for the sake of getting parents out of the way so you don't have to write them, maybe that's lazy. So the parents are alive. He says, haven't you ever read The Hero's Journey? We've got a template to follow. And I've noticed a few people online lately being a bit down on The Hero's Journey. Maybe it's happening more than lately, and I'm just only noticing now. They're sort of saying that you don't have to stick that closely to it. A lot of people are offering alternate pacing structures. There's a lot of talk about some Chinese, I think it's a 5-act Chinese structure, might even be 6-act. I haven't looked into it too much, but there's options, and a good story is a good story. Yes, the hero's journey is a good template to have in your mind, but if everybody does the same thing, then we're just going to get the same stories. Maybe. And she says that she can design her own costumes, and he says, yeah, sure, costumes, whatever. And he's all about the IP and the merchandise, and he cares more about the fact that she's pretty than the fact that she's, well, we don't know if she's capable yet. She hasn't actually done anything. And this speaks to a bigger idea is are there superheroes in this world? Is this a known thing? Something you got to think about it. Is this set in the Trump Space Force Walmart universe? Are they known that that people out there have superpowers? When somebody gets powers in the Marvel or DC universe and they put on some spandex and fight crime, nobody thinks twice about it because they've got a long storied history of that sort of thing going right back to, well, Superman in the Golden Age. But if you want to, Dr. Occult, I think, was around before him. But if you want to look at it in terms of like a chronology of Golden Age through to Bronze Age, it's Superman only appearing, let's say, I'd like to still have Superman appearing roughly 30 years ago, 1986. that'll make him, I guess, in his 50s now. The Kingdom Come show that you can have a 50 or 60-year-old Superman and it still works quite well. But if you're going to go with the idea that, the Justice Society, Green Lantern, Owlman, those sort of guys were the first superheroes in the DC universe, then it makes sense that somebody that gets powers in 2020 decides to put on an outfit and fight crime. It doesn't really make sense that somebody in our world, if they got superpowers, would do that. I could see them putting on some sort of outfit or combat gear, something maybe like what Will Smith wore in Hitch. It's like half a good movie. Just ran out of ideas, or the guy who's writing it just had a real hard-on for Greek mythology and just wanted to jam that in there. So something like, what he wears in Hitch, or some sort of like a street luge outfit, something durable and simple, form-fitting, that is a bit protective, especially if you've got invincible type superpowers where you're bulletproof and that sort of thing. Anything he wears is going to be destroyed. Look at Luke Cage, he goes through hoodies and sweatshirts like no one's business. So it doesn't make much sense for her to get powers and turn up at this place and say, hey, I want to be a superhero, market me, unless superheroes already exist. So then he says there's giant monsters appeared while she was in a coma and nobody told her about it. She said, is that a dino pumpkin? He says, no, that trademark's taking, so we're calling him Gordosaurus and you're going to fight him. She'd rather fight bank robbers. He says, no, that's what cops are for. And bank robbers don't make the news anymore unless they shoot a rapper or someone's dog. So he says if she wants to be serious, if she wants to be big time, watch the hands there, Mr. Man. That's looking pretty patriarchal. And she knows it. Look at that. If she wants to be a big deal, she needs to put on a swimsuit and punch a dinosaur. So it looks like she's taking their advice. She's calling herself Warhen, and she's wearing, I don't know if this is an outfit that she made. See, like these stars. At first glance, it didn't really matter. I didn't notice it, but now that I'm looking at it, they look flat. They don't look like they've been curved to fit the body. They just look like a flat overlay of stars. You see sometimes people doing that in comics with a plaid shirt. They'll just get a plaid pattern and just lay it flat over top. And it doesn't do it for me. It looks cheap. I think they should draw the stars. I know that's awful to do, and drawing stars like that precisely is difficult. I remember Alex Ross jokingly having a go at John Byrne for refusing to draw. I mean, I wouldn't want to draw all those stars. I'm awful at drawing 5-pointed stars. I really struggle with them. She's looking very Captain Marvel there. She goes to fight the Gordosaurus, calling herself Warhen. She goes to call him Dino Pumpkin, but he says call him Gordosaurus or we'll get sued. And to prove the justice of our culture, I will vanquish, and then she gets eaten. So she's already calling her powers bioelectricity. There's no, like you said, no training. If you got powers, would you really just jump straight into things? Wouldn't you want to? There's a lot of movies, shows, comics that have a period of time where the character tries practicing their powers. Look at Go Web, Flame On. Seeing Tobey Maguire trying to get his webs to work in the Spider-Man movie. Seeing Captain Marvel in the Shazam movie trying out his powers, trying to work out how to activate his flight. It was a bit silly that he jumps high and then he lands and he acts like he's hurt from landing from 20 feet up, 30 or 40 feet up, but he's bulletproof, and Captain Marvel could probably survive a nuke, but somehow he's winded from a one-story fall. She uses her lightning powers, her bioelectricity, and she's told by the marketing guys not to forget her branding, so she used some Sailor Scout anime-esque. Dragon Ball does the same thing. They announce the name of their powers. When Superman uses heat vision, he doesn't shout heat vision. I'd like to think this sort of thing is a throwback to when they do it in Dragon Ball. It's a throwback to the martial arts where you make a sound, you cry out, you to channel your energy, to channel your breath, that sort of thing. They'll make like you see Bruce Lee always making all of his sounds. Martial artists make their sounds. Jet Li seems to be really quiet though. He doesn't seem to make a lot of sounds when he fights. But you see, especially karate and stuff, they're always shouting and harring and heeing, and I think maybe calling out the name of the technique is a bit like that. It's like a focusing idea. I think it's got links to the martial arts culture of media. So she shoots her Saturn Static Smasher. She'd fit perfectly in Marvel vs. Capcom. Saturn Static Smasher straight into the jaws of the Gordosaurus. It blows up. She's surprised that it turned into mud when it exploded. And her marketing team is right there on the spot to capitalise. She's Warhen, the first female superhero. Inspiration, little girls everywhere. She's a slick chick. Seems to be, similar to Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers. This whole idea that she's somehow the first or the best female superhero, and she inspires girls and women everywhere. They're doing the same thing with Ms. Marvel with Kamala Khan. But it's all forced. It doesn't look like anybody really wants those books. If they did, they wouldn't have had to reboot Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, a dozen times in the last 2 years. And we got her fighting a few other enemies. Kangster Rapper, because he was Kangs. And everybody's down there on their phones. GP, is that Gravestone Press? Is that Doug Garrett's company? AP? I don't know what that one is. Yeah, I think there's some little shout outs, some little Easter eggs here. That costume looks good. Very much with that sash, very much. Look at this. That's just Ms. Marvel. It's just like a Ms. Marvel recolor. And I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing. Corpulent Conqueror Kablob. 10th monster in Rhode Island, 3 months after her first encounter, and there she is on a Walmart. So it's in the Walmart world, which means that superpowers are a known thing. It means that people have costumes and abilities, so it does make sense for her to get abilities. Just think, okay, I'll be a superhero. That's something that would happen. And this looks like that Rachel Maddow, the old applause button. Why is she eating mud? So there's mud here, there's mud there. This turned into mud, she's eating mud. There's something to do with having to ground electricity? I don't know. Let's find out. 6 months later, we've got a bit of a jump ahead. And she's still kind of... I like this outfit. Still kind of complaining. Like now she's got everything she wants. And she's saying the press gauntlets are worse than the strange monster. So she's got fame, fortune, she's got direction, she's got abilities. She still isn't happy. You see that happen so often. As I think it's KM Wyland has a fantastic series about. It's kind of like the hero's journey, but I want to say better. It's more about like the motivation of the character. It's the lie they believe versus what they think they need versus what they actually need. Fantastic book. And there's KM Wyland, its character arcs. It's like $4 or $5. Check it out. It's probably changed the way I think about writing more than any other book I've come across. So she thought she wanted fame and fortune and direction, and probably what she's lamenting is a lack of agency. She doesn't have a lot of control over what she's doing now. She's a product. She's working for someone else, and yeah, she's getting paid. It's a bit like it's just like Elvis and some of these other, particularly the solo acts. You become this thing, this product that you're no longer your own person, and if you just want to take a day off, or you want to not do a thing, or you'd rather record a different song or fight a different enemy or make a different, you can't, because that's what you have to do. It's the lucky creative that has the option to take a complete 180 or a detour and try something different and still have the fans be accepting of that. I think there's someone like Stephen King who can take a departure from horror and write something very straight, something very normal. He can write these baseball stories, these boxing stories, stuff that isn't necessarily horror, and have people still respond to it positively. And part of that's probably because he's so prolific. If Stephen King puts out a book that you don't like, you just wait 6 months and he'll have another one out, and you might like that one better. So she sees some homeless person rustling through the garbage. She gives the homeless person her scarf. She said, "I made it for you. Please accept it as my gift." That's nice. That's just legit. And see how the colouring is a little bit misty, a little bit hazy. I think that reflects her mood. This is much clearer up here, and here, and then this one, and this. Maybe that's hazy because she always puts out a bit of a glow because of her powers. Is that homeless person there when she... Is that her there? Is that homeless person... It's not the same person that's at the desk. No. I think it'd be funny if they used the same artwork for Not Rachel Maddow here as they did in the last panel. Because it sort of reflects how some of these so-called news hosts or these topical semi-comedian type, I suppose she's more of a news presenter. She's cookie cutter. She's got the same opinions as everybody else around her. It's all echo chamber stuff. So by using the same artwork over and over again, it's saying she's not her own person with her own thoughts. She doesn't have autonomy. She's just a cookie cutter cut out. That's replaceable. That's repeatable. That's duplicatable in any situation. Because she'll be banging on about the same thing for years and years in a row, despite evidence to the contrary. She doesn't want to address reality. She just wants to push a narrative. So for some reason people are making fun of the fact that she gave the scarf to the homeless lady, and that by having her brand of clothing on the homeless lady makes it less desirable and nobody wants to buy it. She says that the clothing is her label, but Warhen is their intellectual property. I can see this being a point where there's a split between the two, and she goes off and makes her own identity, which is why the costume that she's been wearing up until now isn't the same costume we've seen on the front cover. These hands are great. These are really smooth, a lot of flow. Reminds me almost of like some Will Eisner type stuff, that slightly cartoony edge. It makes things really slick. And this plain red background that just makes the whole panel pop out. He says, "Why don't you fly back home to Illinois?" She says, "Indiana." He goes, "Who cares?" And he wants to think of a way to dig her out of this hole, which is one of those things, I think, that if you don't let it be a hole, it doesn't have to be. So it's a week later. She's talking to her not boyfriend, Zygmunt. He's saying that it's been a year and she still doesn't know where the monsters come from. He runs a gun shop. They're Beavis and Butthead. Now I want Mexican food. Never actually had Mexican food. There's only one chain of Mexican restaurants that have popped up in the last couple of years in Australia, but I've never managed to convince someone to go and try it with me. But one day I'm going to try some Mexican food. It speaks to me. I think I like it. So he runs a gun shop. She said how she didn't want to work for the military, but now she works for a corporation, which is no better. And he says, well, you're having more fun. You enjoyed yourself more when you were working for yourself, so maybe you should do that again. A little blurb about newscast about Russian forces in Top Kyrgyzstan agreeing to an extended ceasefire. Missionaries have entered the demilitarized zone to provide aid. Strange explosions have been seen in the area. I mean, this sort of stuff, you don't put that in there unless it means something. You don't have a newscaster talking about stuff unless you want the reader to know that stuff. I didn't think this sort of thing would work so well in a book. I've got times where I've got newscast. I do more of the Frank Miller thing where you'll have a scene and then you cut to a bunch of talking heads across the page with each one's got a little blurb, a little mid-sentence soundbite that adds to the overall narrative that shows people, you see it in Dark Knight Returns and Dark Knight Strikes Again. I haven't read Master Race yet. I bought it, but I haven't read it. It's sitting out in the garage somewhere in a box. Yeah, each little soundbite adds to the overall feeling that's being conveyed. I mean, I reckon if you took out all the talking heads from Dark Knight Returns, you'd cut the page count in half and it wouldn't be as good a book because so much information is delivered that way. I really like delivering information that way. I didn't think it'd work so well in the background, but the way that he's got it filling up the last bit of space and just pushing in on the panels makes you realise what an omnipresent sound that television rattling in the background must be, and that because we're just used to reading, you sort of read it and take it in without really seeing it as an interruption. It's just there, almost simultaneous to their conversation. Sigmund's dad's over with the missionaries in Top Kyrgyzstan, which is why we're being told about it, I imagine. She looks like she knows that he's right, but he doesn't want to admit it. Oh, Tim Lim. Is he cheeky? Is he? So here's Red again. It's not blonde anymore. It's only blonde when she powers up. She comes in saying that she wants to talk about the direction they're going. She's not on board with everything they wanted to do. She's got some ideas about how she'd like to take things. But the marketing bloke says, "I consider you a friend, I would never steer you wrong." And she says, "I appreciate that, Nero." And he corrects her and says, "Call me Mr. Lansky." Some friend. He says, "We're not going to make you do anything you don't want to do." She seems really relieved by that. Lansky reveals they're giving her a sidekick who'll do all the things that she doesn't want to do. A sidekick called Major Babe. And this is really spot on commentary here. It said, "We'll say that she came up with a name that makes it empowering, not sexist." And I mean, look at this character here. The Beretta show, militaristic, violent, macho tendencies, the cybernetic arm. It's this Cyberfrog's little glowing discs that he has around his arms. I don't know how I feel about that stuff. You know, when you see the little GP for Gravestone Press, you see a little Beavis and Butthead. That's kind of funny, but is this funny or is this a little bit mean spirited? Because I've heard there's a bit of bad blood between these guys. I'm not taking sides. I've had nothing to do with either of these creators. They're both obviously good at what they do. And then she's got the purple hair and the pseudo afro, and I mean, if you take the lipstick off her, it could really be a bloke's face, couldn't it? And then the red triangles almost simulate nipples. It says you don't have to be the role model anymore. You can keep doing your cornball shtick and she'll move the agenda along. He's got dollar signs in his eyes. In the background, I've probably watched a half a dozen, maybe a dozen anime in my entire life. Some of them are cool. They're not really my thing. You see a lot of people in the comment section of YouTube videos, particularly fans of people like Just Some Guy, who's a big proponent of anime and manga, I believe. Fantastic YouTuber, great content. Check him out if you haven't already. I mean, if you're watching my videos, you're probably already watching his videos. I doubt anybody's going to watch this and turn around and discover Just Some Guy. But if there's the universally unlikely chance that you're not aware of this guy, go check him out. He's one of the best YouTubers. At him, Zach. There's a few others I'm fond of. People in those comment sections say, "Oh, just ditch Western comics and switch to manga." It's not that easy. Manga and anime is not for everybody, and manga and anime don't offer the same thing. They don't do the same thing. You know, picking up, even some people want to say My Hero Academia does American superheroes better than the Americans. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's accurate these days. I doubt you could say that for all of the life of comics. Is anybody willing to say My Hero Academia does superheroes better than America has ever done superheroes? I don't. I mean, I haven't seen it. I think I've got the first series to watch. I haven't got round to it. And he's got time in between trying to build the YouTube channel and writing fiction and prose and writing comics to get drawn and coloured, and I don't really have time to play games or watch movies anymore, which is a shame. Should make some time and give myself a break now and then. But I still feel doing something like this is more valuable than just sitting down and watching a movie. So you can't say My Hero Academia does superheroes better than America's ever done superheroes, even if it does do it better now. Even if it is better than any other superhero comic being published at the moment, which I don't think it would be, but let's say it is. That's one comic, one manga, one anime. It's the universe of My Hero Academia. It's not Spider-Man, it's not Batman, it's not Superman. They might have analogues in there, I don't know. But it's set within the framework of this world with quirks and whatever other baggage comes with this world. You can't just... There's not one size fits all. To say ditch Western comics and go to manga, and they say, oh, there's manga about soccer, there's manga about cooking, there's manga about relationships, and there's queer manga and woodworking manga and poetry manga and samurai manga. Well, that's fine, but I don't want poetry comics and samurai comics and queer comics and cooking comics. I want superhero comics. So unless you've got loads and loads of superhero manga that portrays superheroes the way that American comics do, that it doesn't fulfill that need for me. I like comics because of superheroes. That's my favourite genre. That's what I want to see. That's what I pursue. That's what I'm making. You can't give me a cooking manga and say, hey, this replaces Batman. You can't give me a manga about calligraphy, competitive calligraphy, which I found out recently is an actual thing. You can't give me a manga about competitive calligraphy and say, here, this replaces Superman. It doesn't work like that. So you got this background here of the dollar signs. Here's all he's seeing, and it gets darker as it pans across to her. I mean, we're reading it left to right like you would Western style, and little sparks of lightning coming off her as she repeats the agenda. Is she going to blow up here? She looks like she's turning red. Now I'm getting throwbacks to the boys with Starlight and her costume issues. It's not really the same thing, but it's familiar. In the spirit of compromise, we do something for you. We're giving her a sidekick she doesn't want. You do something for us. Why would you reciprocate something you didn't want in the first place? He said it's your costume. We love it. It's perfect. Don't change a thing, but we need you to change a thing. So they want some logos on the costume. If you're not making at least 6 figures, you're just a chump. Is that another EVS shout out? Is that another, 6 figures young lady? I don't know. This is saying about, staring at the abyss stares back. Have I been so immersed in SJW media for so long? Have I been seeing it through the lens of them being the enemy for so long that I can't not see it anymore? Or is it just so subtle and so subversive that it is everywhere, and I'm only just, in the last couple of years, noticing it where it is? I'm not saying that this 6 figures thing is SJW by any means, but it could be a little jab, it could be a hidden message, it could be just a little reference that I'd be interested to see other people who have read this. When you read, unless you're making 6 figures, you're a chump, did your mind immediately go to EVS, or is that just something I'm imagining? And again, it had nothing to do with either of these creators. At this point, I still haven't created anything. My comics are still being made, still being drawn and coloured. I'm probably due for some more pages to come through in the next couple of days. So I'm not picking sides. I'm just wondering if that's the intent there. And sometimes this stuff's subconscious. Somebody looked at one of my scripts recently, and they advised me to take out content of a certain type, and I didn't even realise that was in there. He said, you want this to be as marketable as possible. If you put this particular perspective in there, you could alienate some people. That's not what you want. You want to be as... He said, don't puss it down. Don't take the teeth out of it. But also consider, is it worth losing potential customers to make a point that's already been made or doesn't need to be made? And he was right. I certainly could afford to change the way things appeared. I'm being very cagey about this all now, because there's no point inflaming any demographic really. There's a guy on Twitter. He's talking about third wave comics gateism, and the idea is that he even wants the SJW as a customer. He wants to sell to everybody, which I think is an extension of Zach's Crest toothpaste being sold to death row murderers. If you want to say, these people, I don't want them to buy my book. I mean, then you're not a hot dog vendor anymore. You're a propagandist. Do you have an agenda? Is your agenda these people don't deserve, or I don't want them to read my book? I don't think everybody's going to like my books, but I'd certainly be happy for anybody to have a go and try reading them and see what they think. At least read one of them, at least see what you think before you choose not to buy anything ever again. So he asks to put a McDonald's WC. Here you go again. WC is slang for a toilet, water closet in England and Australia. I don't think it's an Americanism so much, but I think because America broke away from England, in a literal war, Boston Tea Party, all that sort of thing. I don't know a lot about that stuff, but there's definitely a breakaway where America reforged its own identity separate from the English, and I think even to the point where they were a bit like Mac and PC. I tend to use PC, and my wife's work, that's all Mac. So whenever I have to give her a hand with computer-based stuff, I'm just lost, because Mac seems to put everything in the opposite direction from a PC. Even like your close button on a PC, it's in the top right-hand corner. On a Mac, it's in the left-hand corner. I don't know which one came first. I've mostly used PCs my whole life. When I find everything in the opposite place on a Mac, it feels to me, and again, I could have the chronology wrong, but it feels to me like Mac sat down and made a list of the way PC does everything and said, right, screw these guys, flip everything 180, put everything in the opposite direction just to say, screw you guys, we're doing it different, we're the opposite to you, we're different to you. Maybe America engaged in a bit of that. I was watching a documentary about coffee and how coffee became so popular, and part of it was it's the caffeine and how it keeps people awake, and it was pushed during one of the world wars, maybe the Second World War, as a really big thing in America, and it became like, you know, the national. I mean, you guys come up with Starbucks. I think we're Starbucks in Australia now. Certainly not anywhere near where I live. But how many people were drinking tea before that happened? Tea being quintessentially British. Over here, I think tea is still the majority of, out of the two, more people drink tea in Australia than drink coffee. And you got your yuppies that'll get a coffee in the morning, your professionals that stop by a cafe and get a coffee in the morning. But in turn, you know, you go to someone's house. Anytime I go to someone's house, they always say, you want a cuppa. Cup of tea is what they mean. You know, nobody says, do you want a cup of coffee? They say, do you want a cuppa? You say, yeah, thanks. Then they might say tea or coffee. And more times you say, oh, coffee, they say, oh, okay. I think I've got some coffee in the cupboard. It's not as common, I don't think, as tea. So we, the Australians and the English, call the toilet a water closet sometimes. You shorten that to WC. So how do you feel about WC Donald's, McDonald's? If Tim Lim's aware of this, is he saying McDonald's is trash? Is he saying McDonald's is food that belongs in the toilet? Is he saying that it's literal shit? I don't know. It's a great thing about art. It's so able to be interpreted. I think this is why people like director's commentaries on DVDs, to see the truth about little instances like this. So she gets very mad. This is very, very anime, very Japanese here. I don't mind it. I don't love it. She blows out the window, says that they're terrible, their ideas are terrible, they've taken advantage of her. Her hair's blonde again, so maybe it looks like it's blonding up here. Yeah, it's turning blonde as she's using a power, so it must fade over time. And she says even though she likes McDonald's, she's not going to wear their logo. They say, we have the name Moorhen, you can't use it. And she goes, that's fine, I never wanted to call myself that in the first place. This guy cracks me up. He doesn't do anything, he doesn't say anything. He just sits there, he's just like this fat blob that just sits there smirking the whole time. He hasn't done anything, he hasn't said anything. He's not unhappy that this is happening. So she's going to call herself KAMEN America. I think is it KAMEN? Is it KAMEN? KAMEN Rider? You think the E would make the say A, but I mean, if it's a Japanese word, who knows? I don't know how she had that costume on underneath. It looks like she's already planning to do this. Okay, so she wasn't wearing it there. She's made a costume. She's come in here saying, hey, I want to wear this new costume. Maybe change the name. And they said, here's a sidekick. Put some logos on your costume. She said, right, I quit. This is who I'm going to be now. That's cool. I don't know if I would have gone with the yellow. Maybe the yellow on yellow's a bit much. I don't know how I feel about these striped leggings being unlined. If a black line down there would have helped look more bold. But I do like striped leggings, whether it's Dopnall soldiers, what do you call Landsnechts? Probably butchered that. Great swords in Warhammer, they got the striped leggings, whether it's, I like Red Rooster's striped leggings. Very often I'll make a Golden Age character. I love Golden Age style characters. I've got dozens of them. I hope to publish the stories I've written, and I've designed their costumes and backstory and that. I've got a whole plan for this, like second phase stuff. Once all the modern stuff's out of the way, I want to jump back and do a whole bunch of Golden Age stuff. I need to find someone who can do that Darwin Cook, Will Eisner type, sort of a, not simpler, but smoother, stylized of the era. And a lot of them have got striped underwear. Like if you look at the Phantom, Kit Walker, his briefs have got a diagonal stripe on it, which is such a unusual design element, even back then. But I really like it. A little bit confused. See, I don't know what KAMEN means. I still don't know what KAMEN means in Kamen Rider or KAMEN. KAMEN sounds better to me. She said that she thought that it was Power Rangers. He said, why'd you choose a name if you didn't know what it meant? Costume doesn't look as good with the red hair, I don't think. The blonde really suits it better. Zygmunt gets a call from his mum. He freaks out and looks for a remote turn on the TV. I imagine his dad, who's a missionary, is in trouble. Russian-backed mercenaries broke the ceasefire. Okay, so Russian bad guys. Eric Larson did this sort of thing for a while. That's what I was thinking of earlier. He he'll draw realistic looking detailed characters in the foreground, and in the background the characters look like this with these like little Orphan Annie type yellow kid eyes in the background, which is fine. I don't mind it. It's not ideal. It's not Brian Hitch, but it's fine. It's fine. Carrot and stick. Carrot and stick. Carrot and stick. Groiper. Carrot and stick. Carrot and stick. Stick. I guess it's carrot and stick, like the old saying. Yeah, I don't know who all these guys are, but that's Edwin Boyd. That's Doug Tenable. That, I don't know, might be Mike Miller. He doesn't have a ponytail, I don't know who this guy is. Looks like Dexter. Number of civilian hostages. Oh no, it's Zygmunt's dad has been captured as well. I think most people could have guessed this is the way it was going to go down. They wouldn't have shown us about the war and the missionaries and mentioned that his dad had gone in as a missionary unless there was going to be a problem. I like this line effect they've got here to make it look like a television. I wonder if they just drew a bunch of lines across and changed the opacity, or if they found an actual, like a piece of lined, an image that had lines across it and then used that. You know, what's the copyright on that sort of thing? If you go online and type in TV lines, image, texture, and you find a black and white image that's white with black lines or black with white lines across it, and you use that and change the opacity and lay it over top of your artwork. I mean, where do you stand with that? You need to provide evidence for that. You need to provide like a link or thanks to this artist, or credit them. It's hard to prove that belongs to any one person. There's old Edward in his Hawaiian shirt. Oh, and there's that flick in the hair, looks just like hers, just like KAMEN America. Is this an evil version? Is this interesting? If it was that Major Babe character, I don't think it is. It does not look like an afro. And then signal's lost, and then we get a little pep talk. He says, "You're asking me how I got my name. I remember what my father told me, and he was right. A spirit of self-determination, of self-reliance. These are the things that make us uniquely American. And behind the mask, that's ultimately all I am. I may not be born to be a hero, but I was born to do some good with what little I have." That's words to live by. Be self-determined, be self-reliant, do good with whatever you've been given. I mean, that's, simply put, they're pretty inspiring words. Well played, Mr. Lim, well played. 2.5 hours later, she is flying over Top Kyrgyzstan. So he opens fire on her. She looks like she's a Russian. Interesting, they both got the same swoop. She doesn't look especially Russian. The outfit looks, militaristic. Is that feathers or fur on the cuffs? So you got that sort of, fur-lined coat look that you get with the Russians, but she doesn't have the pageantry of Carly, being distinctly American. She's told to leave. The Russian is called Meteor, and Carly says, "If you've hurt the innocent people, the hostages, you'll be in trouble." Meteor says, "Why would we damage them? They're our resources." Says that she's seen Carly on TV and calls her a bimbo. Carly's surprised to have seen her on television in Russia, and Meteor says they only get CNN, and CNN doesn't like her very much. Angry Russian noises. So it looks like power of electricity with the power of fire. This is very, very manga, isn't it? Tiny little noses and the contrast. she also shouts her attack names. Bolshevik Blaze. She calls her a mutt. And Carly blocks it and crash lands. And says that the space probe must have given them both powers. But there's other... I haven't read Walmart yet. There appears to be people with powers and that. So how do other people get their powers in this universe? Cyclone Stardust. Velvet Thunder. It's like some sort of lightning whip. And she thinks she's won the fight. This is cool like this. This reminds me of Guacamole, that Mexican themed platform game. It's got a really blocky style with sort of muted colours, but Also doesn't use any black line work to delineate stuff. Fantastic game. Second one come out, but I haven't picked it up yet. I haven't beaten the first one yet. Meteor survives a blast, and it's time to start punching on. And Carly tries to convince them that they shouldn't be wasting time fighting each other. They could work together for the benefit of the world. Meteor says, well, you're wasting your time filming commercials. I was training to use my power. And Meteor's really dominating the fight. It reminds me of that meme with the guy with the sword. You know, when you were on dates, I was practicing the blade. When you were out drinking, I was mastering the blade, the sword. And now the barbarians at the gate, you dare to ask me for help. It feels like that. She's mad why you got to be popular and famous and rich. Maybe enjoy what you're doing. I was there training, and I didn't get the adulation, and I had to fight, and I had to train, and I had to sacrifice everything. So you see there's like a personal grievance there. And there's an interesting point about the missionaries should never have come here. I mean, legally sometimes missionaries do go into places where legally they shouldn't be. There's two sides to it. They're going to provide help to people that need it, which is admirable and heroic. They're taking the risk on themselves, but they are also breaking the law. But sometimes the law isn't justice. There's areas of grey, and I suppose that's why a lot of us write fiction and write stories, so we can explore those areas of grey, because very few things are black and white. And the missionaries came here to help, and so did I. So it looks like she's rallying back through the power of friendship, the power of American determination, maybe. Some nice blurring and glows. This is cool. This you get the sense of motion, of force. Twin-tailored tasers. I bet he had fun sitting down and coming up with these names. I'd love to see somebody put this character into Mugen or some other fighting engine. Both these characters, I mean, it wouldn't be impossible to hire someone to make a fighting game in Mugen with these characters. They're perfectly suited for that sort of thing. It looks like her powers have run out. You can see her hair changing colour again and depowering. She lands on her behind, and she doesn't realise about her shortcomings. Okay, that's why it's really specific when it said 2.5 hours later. It told us up here, you take my word for it, it tells us up here 2.5 hours later it took her 2.5 hours to fly to Topkekistan. She says, like your body, like mine, can only sustain the energy build up for 3 hours, and let me guess, you use most of that just getting here, right? So she's run out of power, whereas Meteor still has her power. Tunguska. This is great. These are great effects here. I really like the swirls and this unlined cloudiness in the background. This is all good. This is a great panel. You see this clumsy, awkward running. Like she's outclassed. She's got nothing going on. All she can do is run. These glowing orbs of energy as the power coalesces. Is fantastic stuff here. So about 3/4 of the way through the comic now, maybe 2/3. Huge blast knocks Carly off her feet, and we fade to white. She is defeated. Oh, she's still alive though. She sees Meteor's tie and says, "Is this particular type of material? How did you hide the hem stitching?" So they're the same. They got something in common here. She said, "I didn't stitch that thing. It's a government issue." And Carly says, "Are you sure? Because the tag says it was made by you." And she said, "Why didn't you write it in Cyrillic?" It's because so the soldiers couldn't read it, because she's embarrassed, but she's also into fashion. She likes to sew, and she's told that soldiers aren't allowed to sew. So this has actually come around pretty neatly. At the beginning, Carly was told that she had to be like a boy and she shouldn't be allowed to sew, but she did it anyway, and it's got her success. And here, Meteor has been told the same thing. You're a soldier. You're not allowed to sew. You're not allowed to be feminine, I suppose. You're not allowed to be feminine. You're not allowed to sew. So there's some nice parallels there. I was wondering if Lynn was going to bring that back together. And she says she loves her family and she loves her country and she wants to do the right thing by them, but she doesn't want to do the stuff that she's being made to do. And her hair's starting to power down as well. It's not red anymore. I think that's pretty cool. It's going back to like a blue colour. She said you can be the sort of person that does the right thing and you can still sew clothing. You don't have to be a soldier. You don't have to take hostages. You don't have to hurt people. And then she uses her dad's words. So there he is. There's KAMEN. There's a lot of people concern themselves with telling you to be something you're not. The only thing you should focus on is being someone you are. So I brought that right back around. I didn't have faith. I didn't think he's going to bring that back around. I thought that was just going to be a little bit on the nose, but she brought it back around and used those words to save the day. I could see this being a Pixar type movie. I could see this being a Pixar type Incredibles type movie where the sentiments that's expressed early on. Pixar's really good at that sort of running with the theme through the whole story. You know, there's like a main idea. You know, special people should be treated as if they're special, and everybody's special, nobody's special. That sort of stuff you saw in Incredibles. I could see this sort of be who you're supposed to be who you are, be true to yourself thing being the theme for a Pixar type movie with these characters in it. Angry Russian noises, and I like the idea that she's maybe changing sides or whatever, and she makes angrier Russian noises, and they know it's good. Nadel Bewedja Jealous Shaft. I don't know what Tim Lim just tricked me into saying, but it doesn't sound good. And she said she'll probably get kicked out of the she'll probably get kicked out of the army for not going along with the orders, but Carly says, I turned down the military and I'm doing fine, so maybe you could do the same. She says, but the military owns the trademark to her name, so she can come, and Carly says you can come up with your own name, your own costume. She'll even help her. They could become a crime-fighting duo. She said you could be KAMEN Comrade. Comrade is Russian for friend, and she says I know what comrade means. So I know I've said a couple of times I wondered if some of the things were little jabs at EVS, but this one's got to be. So the shyster is talking about how Carly turned on them, not the other way around, and made it all sound like it's her fault. And then we got not Rachel Maddow towing the corporate line again. He said, yes, we're the victims of this vile woman. Support us by buying Major Babe coins. I didn't notice it before. KAMEN Americant. Are you an American or an Americant? And this is the thing with news and events and reporting on them. If you read his little tirade, nothing that he says is actually untrue. If you read his little tirade, he didn't tell her not to use America as a name, but he did say use Warham because it's more profitable. She did leave, stabbed us in the back. Debatable interpretation. We made her career, that's true. And she's losing popularity while we're making bank, probably true. Sounds like the same thing your last 4 clients did to you, obviously their fault. So here we go. Not Maddow, blaming everybody but the people who make the problems. Okay, so her little house is out. Her little workshop is out the back of this house. So these guys together? They must be together. I didn't get the impression they were in a relationship. And there's still this jar of dirt. It looks like she's eating dirt before. I'm still not sure what to go with that is. So they are gonna talk about the monster mud. And she gets a bit of the mud on her, and she says, "It better not be radioactive or cursed or something. I have church in the morning." There's a picture of a saint in the background. So Tim Lim is not shy about making at least some of his characters Christian. He thanks her for bringing his dad home, and he says, "You're going to keep doing the superhero thing," and she says yes, she's going to keep doing the right thing. And here we go, flashback to 9 months ago. So she's been doing this for a year, so this is 3 months after, I assume after the first event that gave powers to her and Meteor. So it's highlighting that there'll be a Japanese character, so they might end up with like a whole international Burger King's kids club. That's cool. I'm glad there's 2 of them. I'd like to see them all. What do you want to bet that this it's going to be another female? What do you want to bet it's going to be an all female? Interesting if the energy only affects people with an X with no Y chromosome, with 2 X chromosomes. Looks like that carrot and stick is an artist. That's her Twitter. I assume it's her because it was her character in the book. So she's done some pictures. There's another pin-up using her USO costume, which I actually think is a pretty great costume in itself. It's simple, but it definitely does the job. Maybe if she does get a sidekick, she could give this costume to her sidekick. I like that glitter effect on the top there. That's pretty cool. That's something I'd like to see on a costume and done in every panel of someone's costume. We've got another poster that's drawn by Sashi, who seems to be getting a lot of poster work. I know she's done some posters for your boy, and she did a bunch of artwork for Nurkish as well. I like that little bit of the design. That's cool. It's nice to see a woman who's not afraid to draw a woman looking like a woman. That's cool. So it just reminds me of like X-Men vs Street Fighter or Marvel vs Capcom style artwork. You know, different Street Fighter games had different styles of artwork. Looks like a little backup story where she goes to meet up with a doctor and says they built her a helicopter called the KAMEN copter, but because she rejected the job offer, she can't have it. But he's joking. And this is a crossover with Tim Lim's Black Hops. What you're seeing right here is all I know about it. I know it is a thing. It's something to do with animals, animal soldiers. Cool, blimey. There's some fantastic artwork on that back cover. Look at that. That's great. So it's a nice introduction to the character. It's almost halfway through the book before we see her in costume with a code name, but somebody pointed out to me the other day that we don't see RoboCop as RoboCop until 30 minutes into the movie, so sometimes that sort of slow burn build-up works just fine. I mean, look at the first series of Punisher on Netflix. I don't think he wears the actual skull until the last episode, maybe only just for the last episode. He hardly ever wears the skull in that, which I think is a mistake. Fun. I got a chuckle out of a few places. Tim Lim's definitely a funny guy. The manga style isn't really for me, but stuff like this and stuff like that's all fine. It's just some of the. I thought she was eating that before. That was, but I can see the look on her face now. She's not. Yeah, I can't get out how much she looks like Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, in these pictures. It's a good costume. Some of the kooky anime stuff doesn't sit with me so well, but I mean that's the style. It's not. Doesn't make me not want to pick the book up. Doesn't mean I'll get the next one. This sort of stuff I don't really like that, but it's a convention of the genre. It is what it is. I guess formulaic is the word, and it's not a bad thing. Like formulas work. Again, we got that hero's journey for a reason. There's 3 and the 5-act structure for a reason, and we look for it. And there's a familiarity that when we find that familiarity, there's a your brain goes, oh good, that's what I thought it was going to be. I'm not surprised. I'm not outraged. I'm not offended or affected or attacked. I thought it was going to be thing. It is thing. I'm good with that, and it's the way that you present the thing. It's the trappings. I mean, here we've got a small town girl gains power, goes corporate, decides to stay true to her roots. Ultimately, in the end, defeats an overpowering enemy with the power of words, love, heart, friendship, and America. There's nothing new being done here, but that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. It doesn't mean it wasn't worth the price. It doesn't mean seeing the same thing but in a new package isn't worth turning up for. I don't regret buying this. I'm certainly glad I've got it. I would have liked to have a physical copy, but I look forward to seeing what the Japanese. What would she be? Nippon? KAMEN Nippon? What does Japan call their own country? I know that Germany doesn't call their country Germany. So that's KAMEN America by Tim Lim. The other guy that he works with, whose name is Mark Pellegrini. That is a name I've seen around as well. Yeah, that's top artwork. Look at that. That's fantastic. Well, I've managed to stick around for this wandering, rambling ramble. Thanks. I don't know if I'm impressed or worried. I don't know if we'll be making a habit of this. It was nice just to go sort of stream of consciousness and just react to something and not have to be following a script, not have to be performing. I'm still going to have to go back and heavily edit this to cut out interrupting kids and to cut out barking dogs and the delivery guy that turned up halfway through. But yeah, you got opinions either way. Just let me know what you think about scripted reviews versus unscripted freeform reviews. There's certainly an art to getting it down to a shorter time and just condensing your thoughts. I know Zach usually reads the comic first, then goes back and does a video on it. Maybe that's something I should be doing, reading it first, getting my thoughts together, and then just going through and doing a quick commentary like this. Certainly a lot less work than editing a regular video and adding all the little cutaways and pictures and images in that I do. I mean, sometimes one of those videos can take all day to edit. I'm sort of learning it all. It's all brand new to me. And I wonder sometimes if that's the best use of my time, if making a 12-minute video doing a review of somebody's Indiegogo comic shouldn't be better off spending that day writing a comic of my own. I certainly have plenty that could be written. Alright, thanks for listening and see you next time. Bye.